Welcome to the Joe and Ethan show. We're going to talk about politics. You see the map of Illinois. This is all the districts. We've also got the Constitution right here. Now that's the amendments. Here's the Constitution. And a bunch of maps and a bunch of smart people. This is Joe, and I'm Ethan. Joe, who do you represent and why are you here?
Right now I represent myself and the about to be founded Mutualist Party. If all goes according to plan, I'm going to run for Congress in 2020 for the Illinois 10th District House, U.S. House. And today I got Ethan and Joe here to talk about who's running for president. There are actually over 700 people running. If you go to the Wikipedia 2020 United States presidential election and ballotpedia.org/list_of_registered, etc., 2020 presidential candidates, you can find that full list of 700. But I thought I'd read some of the most famous and recognizable names for the Republican Party. Bill Weld, the former Libertarian vice presidential nominee, also John Kasich, and a person named Larry Hogan, who I don't know too much about. They are all looking like they're going to be challenging Donald Trump for the primary.
Larry Hogan is the governor of Maryland.
Okay.
And John Kasich is the former governor of Ohio, I think.
Right.
And then Bill Weld was the former governor of
Massachusetts.
The possibility of any of these three Republican candidates being on the ballot is that we've now hit 14 states which have passed local bills that prevent any candidate who doesn't present their tax returns for public scrutiny as ineligible to be on the ballot. You have to provide anywhere between 1 and 5 years in any of these 14 states. New Mexico was the last state that passed this because they don't want Donald Trump on the ballot. Nobody wants Donald Trump on the ballot. What has happened here, America? So there could be 3 Republicans challenging him, and it would be different than any type of that battle before because the incumbent wouldn't be eligible in less than 50 states, which would be incredible. What about the Democrats, you say?
So I thought I'd read a list of about 29 people who are the most recognizable names for Democrats. Not to say there aren't many more. Again, there's 700 people running total. It could be an additional 100, 200 people for all we know running for maybe even primarying Trump too. It could be dozens. Again, you got to look it up, ballotpedia.org. But we got Stacey Abrams, Michael Arth, Michael Bennett, Joe Biden, Cory Booker, Harry Braun, Steve Bullock, Pete Buttigieg, Julian Castro, Bill de Blasio, John Delaney, Tulsi Gabbard, Kristen Gillibrand, Mike Gravel, Kamala Harris, John Hickenlooper, Jay Inslee, Amy Klobuchar, Wayne Messam, Seth Moulton, Ken Nwadike, Beto O'Rourke, Tim Ryan, Bernie Sanders, Eric Swalwell, Elizabeth Warren, Robbie Wells, Marianne Williamson, and Andrew Yang. Who do you guys like the most out of these Democratic challengers?
It started occurring to me towards the end of it that I didn't like most of them because I either never heard of them, so I can't know what to trust yet, and that is part of an election. It's being known in the first place for doing the right thing for a very long time, in which case Bernie Sanders is the best because Biden's been known for a very long time to be doing the wrong thing, no matter what the TV thinks. And then Bernie Sanders did the right thing for a long time. A couple of names stuck out to me as bad people. Like I would say Cory Booker is a bad person. Cory Booker is a bad person, camera, because he took some pharmacy money and voted against the importing drugs from Canada. Screw that guy.
Yeah. And libertarians and Greens can both get along on why that's a bad thing. I'm against that for libertarian reasons, for free trade reasons.
Yeah, I'd probably say of this list, Bernie would be the best candidate for the Democrats to pick. I think that it's pretty much like a two-way race between Bernie and Joe Biden. And so Democrats have this rule. It's like a 15% threshold in order to get just delegates, I guess. You need to have 15%. And with this many people, with 23 people who have officially announced, there's not a lot of people that are going to be getting that number. Already the polls are showing Bernie and Biden are the only people who ever get that number.
You're saying that 15% is the number necessary to qualify for what?
To get delegates.
get
in a
delegates.
in a,
Oh, do you get
in
any
a,
delegates?
in a
Oh, no,
primary.
so
From
no
their
one less
state?
than 15% gets any delegates in any state primary.
Right. Democrats use proportional representation. You still have to clear that 15%. So some of these other candidates I know are like kind of popular, especially with young people. You know, like Andrew Yang, for instance. But realistically, like if you can't get that 15%,
So
a
in
lot
New
of
Hampshire,
people might want to like strategically think about who's actually going to be able to get delegates. And I don't know, it might be wiser for them to go with Bernie because otherwise, Biden's going to be the candidate.
Yeah, we're all hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's looking like
That's,
Biden is getting about 40% in the polls, and Bernie's getting 10 to 15. The media's been pushing for Biden long before he officially declared. I haven't seen the thing where he even officially declared yet. It's like he doesn't need to. So weird how he's the
He
presumptive
did a
nominee.
video from
in
Philadelphia,
office.
but
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Did you say something about New Hampshire earlier?
Yeah. So I don't think we have to worry about strategic voting until the last polls in January 2020 before the first primary, which is at the end of January, I believe, unless it's very early in February.
The first elections are in February.
Oh, the first one. So Iowa and New Hampshire then are in February.
California's going to be a big major early one.
They're going to be. Oh, I literally have a chart about
South
that.
Carolina's third, and then I think Nevada might be fourth.
We can add that chart later and splice it in.
Yeah.
Viewers can
Nevada.
watch it.
Yeah. There's. I'm getting the chart now.
We're going to take it over to Ethan now, who's going to read you some the dates of the Democratic primaries by state.
So the first ones are the Iowa caucuses on February 3rd, 2020, AD, or CE, as I like to say. February 22nd is the Nevada caucuses. That's on a Saturday. South Carolina primary is on February 29th. March 3rd is Super Tuesday. The primaries of that day will be Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Georgia, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, the Virginia primary, and the Democrats abroad. On Super Tuesday, March 3rd, 2016, there were 1,194 delegates. In 2020, elected that day. In 2020, it's 1,433. So Super Tuesday has become more packed. They're front-loading the election as much as they can to have a nominee as early as possible in states that they control the most.
It could benefit Kamala Harris a lot.
That's the plan. That's why California was picked. But why is she tanking in the polls? Because she's trash? Because Bernie Sanders is the best? Your thoughts. You next.
I don't know. I guess they didn't have to steal California from Bernie Sanders, but he got like 46% or something. Yeah, everyone was thinking on Bernie winning California. That's when we knew he had no chance after he lost California. That was too bad.
They said he lost it the day before he lost it. That was clear media collusion.
Well, Trump voters, 10% of Trump primary voters, if you would have just voted for Bernie against Hillary, because I know 10% of you prefer Bernie against Hillary, you wouldn't have had this problem.
They just wanted to protest no matter what, because never Hillary was bigger than Stop Trump, that's for sure. What kind of chart you got next? Yikes.
I'll put a bigger version of this on the screen. This is the Pizzagate, Russiagate, Ukrainegate thing that I figured out and put together. So I wanted to explain a lot of things about Joe Biden and his son. Now, he used to have two sons. One died of cancer. We're talking about Beau Biden and Joe Biden.
Cheers. It's Pizzagate time.
So we're going to have links in the description. Pizzagate itself is too hard to get to, but I'll have a link that'll lead you to about 6 other links about all my Pizzagate and Ukrainegate research. But what it comes down to is that Joe Biden's son is on the board of a Ukrainian oil company called Burisma. I think it's not just oil, but probably oil and natural gas companies. There are a lot of people on this board, Burisma, including a nephew of John Kerry and one of its lobbyists, former lobbyists, was David J. Leiter, whose wife is Tamara Stanton Luzzatto. Tamara Stanton Luzzatto is the former owner of the blog Evie's Crib, where, according to the description, depending on how you interpret it, could have been basically a webcam. She was probably using her granddaughters as cam girls. And her granddaughters were between 1 and 10 years old at the time. Their names were Emerson, Ruby, and Maeve Luzzatto. People suspect this because there's a 2015 email where she emails John Podesta, Hillary's campaign manager, and several other people, saying that those girls would be in a heated pool. And she named their names and ages. And so people interpreted this as like she could be offering her daughters up for what? I don't know. Until you think about the fact that her husband, David J. Leiter, who is an associate of John Kerry, was a former lobbyist of the biggest energy company in Ukraine. What is Ukraine next to? Russia. What language do the Ukrainians speak? Russian. Ukrainian Russian. Mutually intelligible. Could easily be mistaken Ukrainian for Russian on the internet because they speak the same language. So that means that if there's communication coming from Ukraine, it's coming in Russian. So it could be easily mistaken as coming from Russia, which is why, this is all stuff that supports something I've been saying for about 2 years, which is that Russiagate is a distraction from Ukrainegate. And Ukrainegate and Pizzagate are true. There might be some collusion between Trump and Russia when it comes to having a Trump Tower in Moscow. I don't know, but I think there's that basic level of government business collusion in terms of Trump. I wouldn't say he's innocent of everything he's being accused of. There may well be Trump-Russian collusion, especially because there's this, former Ukrainian energy secretary who was pro-Russian, Mykola Zlochevsky, the ecology manager, under Yanukovych. And Paul Manafort has been lobbying in favor of Viktor Yanukovych since 2003 when he was in the Bush administration. So they're lying about everything. America supported revolution or civil war in Ukraine in 2014. There's an Obama appointee and a Hillary appointee on a phone call with each other from 2014 saying, F the EU, F the European Union, and that they were deciding who should be in charge of the government that takes over Ukraine after the 2014. I think it was Yanukovych. I think Yanukovych was in and out of government between 2003 and 2013 or 14 or something.
So I don't think cleats should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys.
Sullivan's come back to me, VFR, saying you need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So okay. Biden's willing.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something to make it stick together.
So they're deciding who would take over in his absence to create a not just pro-Western, but explicitly pro-American, not pro-EU regime in Ukraine for America's benefit. And there's this article, Biden faces conflict of interest questions that are being promoted by Trump and allies. This is Beau Biden, not Joe Biden. It was a foreign policy role Joe Biden Jr. enthusiastically embraced during his vice presidency, blah, 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 Ukraine, etc. All the stuff I just told you. $50,000 a month in some months for his work for the company Burisma Holdings after testing positive for cocaine after being discharged from the Navy. and he also married his dead brother's wife. So the Bidens are bags of shit.
That's when the Habsburgs showed up.
Yes.
Right in the middle of the Biden line.
Yes, because the next article is called Beau Biden Defends Handling of DuPont Air Sex Case. So, and here...
No, we gotta hang that guy. I'm gonna say that on live television. We gotta hang that guy. What's his name, DuPont?
Robert H. Richards IV. He's a DuPont family heir. Last name is not DuPont, but Richards. I don't know the relation there. But he got probation after admitting to raping his 3-year-old daughter. He also molested a son. I think it was infant son, or I don't know. It's older or younger. But 4th-degree rape of his daughter. And Joe Biden's son, Beau Biden, was Attorney General of Delaware. This was back in 2014. Attorney General says state's case wasn't strong and plea bargain was appropriate. The judge in the case was Superior Court Judge Jan Jurden. Biden defended Judge Jurden, who noted in her sentencing order that the wealthy father will not fare well in prison. So because he's wealthy, because probably pays his taxes, contributes to society, blah, blah. Yeah, they'll leave him alive. Like an admitted child rapist of a 3-year-old, and the Bidens are helping him get off with probation. Just like in Hillary in the 70s, when strong possibility she colluded with the prosecutor in the Kathy Shelton case. We're going to put this up there. All the things Joe Biden has supported, they're terrible in his career. (1991) attacked Anita Hill. 1994 wrote disastrous crime bill, like I talked about. 95 wrote Omnibus Counterterrorism Act, later became Patriot Act. I just want to throw one more thing in. He's responsible for making ecstasy illegal.
Joe Biden himself introduced that bill, or what?
Yeah, there was like some, I think it was a child trafficking bill, and they used it as a rider to they're trying to ban club drugs. This was in mid 90s or something.
I do remember that controversy. Sometimes I would read Time magazine in the darkness.
And obviously only adults should take MDMA, but that's not what this was about. I mean, I think banning MDMA contributed to the hysteria of it, so people don't know how to take it safely, and I think people were dying of water poisoning from drinking too much water. You're supposed to drink enough water, so there's people in the Libertarian Party who advocate that the public should be taught about safe drug use and not just told to stay away from it, because if they do insist on doing drugs, they should at least know how not to kill themselves in the process. Joe Biden in 1999 repealed the Glass-Steagall Act. 2001 voted for the Patriot Act. 2002 voted for the Iraq War. 2005 voted to end bankruptcy protection for students. 2018 presented George W. Bush with the Liberty Medal.
So basically, he did everything Reagan would have done if Reagan's head would have lived in a jar. If Reagan would have been president for life, it would have been the same as if we switched between Reagan and Bush and Clinton and Obama and Joe Biden. They would just keep on cutting on us and keep on giving away the money at the top. Joe Biden, really, he did all that, and he's bad on social issues. He's bad on finance, foreign policy, and social issues. Triple thumbs down for Joe Biden.
Yeah. He would be a repeat of the Barack Obama administration, and as Jimmy Dore is apt to point out, Barack Obama admitted that if he would have been around in the early 90s, he would have been a moderate Republican. And if you watch the Reagan-Bush Sr. debate from, 84, it would have been 1980 or something, I don't know. They were remarkably moderate by today's standards. And speaking of Joe Biden being bad on social issues, I just want to say I'm a libertarian. I know enough about consent that I don't need to watch videos of Lady Gaga and Joe Biden telling me anything about consent.
But we're here to remind you that it's important to reach out to someone in your life that you can trust and to know that they will be there to help you. There will be someone to listen. Because you know what? It's on us.
We cannot trust Joe Biden on consent when his son is saying that it's fine to let admitted rapists of 3-year-olds off with 6 months probation or however long probation it was. whispering in teenage girls' ears. That's Maggie Coons, the daughter of Chris Coons, senator of Delaware, girl from Delaware.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
I think right after this happened, Joe Biden invited them all to come see him in Delaware, and the mother said no very quietly. YouTube is great. It's Joe Biden stroking both sides of the head of a young Asian American girl.
Yeah, this one's pretty clear. I think y'all seen this, and that's no grandfather touches anybody like that, especially grandfather for kids that aren't his. Especially.
It's Joe Biden. Yeah, I mean, yes, I'll hold the baby. Well, where are you supposed to hold him? He gave an awkward handshake to this baby's crotch. And there are other versions of this photo where he's just shaking the hand of the man, but that one is a Photoshop. People suspected that this one was a Photoshop. It turned out that this one is the real one.
Are you saying that somebody manufactured counter disinformation?
Yes. Stroking both sides of a girl's head once again.
It's so clear. Even if somebody photoshopped anything, they couldn't Photoshop everything. This shit's live on C-SPAN for 20 years.
Yeah. And this is Joe Biden back in the 70s. He is staring at this, 10, 9, 8-year-old girl's chest and covering his erection. And finally, free the nipple. January 3rd, 2015, Joe Biden moves his hand up a girl's side and pinches her nipple, causing her to step a few inches to the left and causing her eyes to bug out as she realizes what's happening. This is the niece of Senator Steve Daines of Montana.
Is getting too close to the women. And you can see some of them are feeling uncomfortable. It's just, there's a space. You have to give a space in between. This guy is literally making the women or the wives of these men, these congressmen, uncomfortable. And it's like every time he sees a little girl, he gropes them or he grabs them. You can see one girl is uncomfortable and trying to wander away, but he pulls her back.
This is Joe Biden's welcome, live on C-SPAN, to the new Republican senators and probably a lot of the Democrats too. He takes advantage of those congressional swearing-in ceremonies to grope the senators' wives and daughters, no matter how old the daughters are.
Spread your legs, you're going to be frisked. Drop your hands. You say that to somebody in North Dakota, they think it's a frisk. Drop your hands to the side, They think you're in trouble, right? I need a hug, kid. Come on. I need a hug. God. 50. Remember, no serious guys in your 30s. Okay?
He's even awkwardly kissed a very young boy on the lips.
Yeah, there's video of that, right?
And he put his hand on the knee of a very large police officer, a very large and confused police officer, I might add. So no, Joe Biden is no good. Why in God's name the media is promoting Joe Biden since even before his half declaration, even before his real declaration, if he's even made one yet? Why are they just inflating him? 40 free points, including him in all the polls for free, hadn't even entered yet. So, I tweeted the whole cast of The View separately and told them, who the fuck do you think you are, basically?
I don't think it rises to the point what we've been listening to about Harvey Weinstein and the rest of these people. It just doesn't look like that.
Are we going to get to a place where we can't shake hands? We can't hug each other because That, to me, was uncomfortable. I worry about that.
That's what he's like. And I feel it would be really unfortunate if we got rid of everybody who was just an affectionate kind of person.
Well, I don't want Joe to stop doing that.
I don't either.
So I'm sick of this shit. In 2016, I voted for Gary Johnson because Gary Johnson and Jill Stein were the only two of the top 4 who had not been basically suspected of enabling rape or committing groping or surrounding themselves with people who grope people. They both know Jeffrey Epstein, and I don't want to have to go through this shit again, where it's just like, can we vote for just some non-rapist? But no, it's going to be Donald Trump against Joe Biden. So, I wish Bill Weld and John Kasich and Gravel and Williamson and Yang, and to some extent Sanders and Gabbard, luck with their efforts.
I want to see if we can get Mike Gravel. If we get him on the debate stage, he's already said he's going to call people murderers live on TV for voting for wars that they were obviously lying about, and we know they were lying. Like, that's the worst thing in the world. That's international news, but that's not the news in America, right? So, if we get Mike Gravel on stage, can we get him to say, "You nipple-pinching, baby-eating motherfucker," or what? I don't think Hillary eats babies. I don't think Joe Biden eats babies. But I think those guys are compromised in certain ways. I mean, at worst, Hillary's the worst mob boss in history. Because they've got their hands in the diamond trade, the oil trade, the healthcare trade, the supermarket trade, the manufacturing trades.
The CIA is probably flying drugs into Arkansas since back when the Clintons were in charge of it.
And don't we know that's true? They shot the guy. Does that mean it's false because they killed the guy who told us?
But there's Hillary and Bill, and I made my own Obama death lists out there, and those are all real. Even if a bunch are made up, a bunch of them are worth looking at. They do kill people. There's been accusations that Chelsea's life was threatened by the Obama administration during the 2008 primary, and 3 Hillary delegates.
Chelsea Clinton or Chelsea Manning?
Chelsea Clinton's.
Oh, and they didn't talk about that?
And there were 3 delegates, 3 super delegates. I can't remember whether they were pro-Hillary or pro-Obama, who were killed. 2 during the primary and 1 shortly after. The one after was Cam Kawada. The first one was Stephanie Tubbs Jones and William Gwadney. And those are 3 of the suspicious deaths and disappearances on the Obama murders, 124 suspicious politically motivated deaths and disappearances from Obama's first term.
The 3 last primaries, so they expect it to be wrapped up by June 2nd, Tuesday. Then there will be 3 more primaries after the last few medium-sized and small states. There's going to be the Virgin Islands on Saturday, June 6th. Puerto Rico on Sunday, June 7th. On a Sunday? Are they hoping everybody's at church? And Tuesday, June 16th, is the Washington, D.C. primary. How does Puerto Rico have enough population to have 51 delegates, but Washington, D.C. only has the population to have 17 delegates? I think that's interesting.
I think that's actually fair, because I think D.C. has about 600,000, and Puerto Rico might have almost 3 million or 4 million, so that would be fair.
Yeah, it's numerically fair, but it's still odd that Puerto Rico ought to be a state.
Yes, definitely.
Was my, and I think Gravel said that too. Did Bernie say that yet? He's going to say it.
I don't know. I do know the Libertarian Socialist Caucus supports D.C. and Puerto Rican statehood. At least Puerto Rican. I tried to convince them to D.C. I haven't seen the new platform yet. But hopefully I will be getting that platform and presenting it to the Chicago College of Complexes sometime this summer. Like who I like most for Democrats, I like the last 2 names on the list, Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang, and also Mike Gravel. I think Bernie Sanders is the one, I voted for him in the Democratic primary in 2016 against Hillary, and I think more Trump supporters should have done that too, because Trump was an easy win over Cruz in most states as well as Illinois, and they could have spared a few voters for try to stop Hillary.
It is said that there were more Never Hillary people than Stop Trump people.
Why aren't there more Stop Hillary and Trump or Never Hillary, Never Trump people? I saw one bumper sticker all election season with that, and I'm like, right on.
Giant Meteor was more popular than
yeah.
Nobody was bigger than neither.
I saw somebody with a bumper sticker, Giant Meteor, not too long ago.
Yeah, good.
I just want to explain the reason I like Gravel, Yang, and Williamson is I think Gravel and Yang I think would be acceptable to, aside from Democrats, Greens and Libertarians. Yang is consciously trying to court the Libertarian vote by citing people like Milton Friedman and Thomas Paine, in addition to MLK as the inspiration for his UBI, the Universal Basic Income, $1,000 a month plan. And then Marianne Williamson, as long as she stops supporting like drafting people, I would be more likely to support her. But I think Sanders is the person that I begrudgingly accept as president because he's preferable to both Sanders and Trump. And I think there's a lot of people who would agree to that. I thought I'd go through the list of Libertarian and other presidential candidates. It's been some buzz that Justin Amash might run for Libertarian Party presidential candidate. I don't think that's likely. The other ones are Daniel Berman, Joey Berry, Joseph Campbell, M.E. Sargent Cook, Kyler DePriest, Benjamin Drake, Peyton Fawcett, Dakota Hale, Jacob Hornberger, Heather Horst, William Joseph Hurst, Adam Kokesh, Cecil Insa, possibly Zoltan Istvan, the transhumanist, Ben Layton, Ben Leder, Kip Lee, Seymour Art Lee, Donald Lowe, Joseph Maldonado, Christopher Marks, John McAfee, Jason Peach, possibly Darryl Perry, who ran in 2016, maybe Austin Peterson, if he's not committed to being a Republican anymore, Derek Reed, Stephen Ritchie, Samuel Robb, Kim Ruff, Sandra Salas, possibly the progressive talk show host Sam Cedar, Jason Civillo, Mark Spivey, Leonard Sports Interviews, Vermin Supreme, Arvin Vora, that's 3 great names in a row, Chris Weaver, Krista Marie Whipple, and Terry Wilkerson. Again, you can see the Aquarian Agrarian, my blog, list of candidates running for president in 2020 if you want to see those lists.
That's just in one party? That sounds like democracy to me.
That's 40 Libertarian candidates.
How is that convention going to work? You need to get like a majority.
I bet it'll be narrowed down to 5.
Well, yeah, I guess if they, like, I know at the Illinois convention, they would eliminate the candidate who would get the least amount of votes.
Yeah, they did the instant runoff voting.
I guess it could narrow down after
they didn't
40
do
votes.
First past the post? They did. How did they do it?
Yeah, well, I guess it was first past the post. Like, it was majority vote, but you have so many candidates. You know what I mean? Nobody's getting there. Like at the Illinois convention, it took 3 ballots to get out.
Yeah, they require more than 50%. You have to get 50% of the vote or more. So it's, first post, but also instant runoff. And then the Green Party candidates, we have 13 of them. Alan Augustin, Ivan Jan Dissuasido, Howie Hawkins, who Ethan and I met a few weeks ago in Chicago. Dario Hunter, who was there as well. Elijah Manley, Kent Mesplay, Robert Milnes, Sedinam Moyo-Wasifsa Curry, Bill Kreml, Kurt Nichols, James Ogle, who's a friend of mine. He's associated with USA Parliament. Ian Schiakman, I don't know how to pronounce that, Schiakman, and possibly Jesse Ventura.
Well, Hawkins and Hunter seem to be like the favorites.
Yes, they're the big name candidates, I guess. And there's 2. Did you get a chance to talk to Dario Hunter?
Yeah, briefly. He's quite a character. If he doesn't do too good this year, I hope he does better next time. Because I feel like Howie Hawkins is the front runner, just from people who have been in the Green Party more than a couple of years, because he was the originator of the Green New Deal. He ran on that twice for governor of New York, and then Jill Stein took that to run for president, and then Howie Hawkins used it again to run for governor of New York, and somehow Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez heard of that, and I'm glad she did, because that means a true left stance is on the national stage. Even if it's voted down, even if it's reworked, I don't like her reworking of it, because they took the Green New Deal and took out some key provisions. It's about clean energy, but they don't recognize reducing the military as part of that. How much of America's footprint would be reduced from all of our overseas bases? The majority. We have 900 bases around the world. That's a bad idea. just for foreign policy and efficiency and funding. And every time we go to one of those places, we're spending how much oil? Aircraft carriers are like entire cities. They're just burning oil up into the sky. That's why they're going around the world, tearing up all the countries that have the oil so they can perpetuate themselves. It's terrible.
You know, that idea is very unpopular.
What is?
Reducing the military. No politicians want to support that. Well, maybe a few, but like to get a majority was that would be really difficult.
Even Bernie said, reduce the military.
Gary Johnson ran in 2016 on reducing total military spending by 40%, and he was able to convince an audience of Bill Maher viewers that was a good idea. And he explained we have more military spending than what the next 15 to 18 countries combined or something.
Well, it's easier. It's easier to make the sell to people. Like I think a lot of people would support reducing the military, but to get it, get it passed by Congress.
That too.
And who are they getting their money from? So, very few times military spending gone down.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned Congress on this topic because it's recently come out that like Eisenhower's military-industrial complex, the original draft said congressional military-industrial complex. So it is Congress. They have the purse strings. They have the ability to spend it. And in cases of foreign aid, they're planning spending for more than 2 years at a time. And I've been saying that's unconstitutional. And I think libertarians and Greens can if they can be sold on reducing the military spending, then we can reduce our carbon footprint overseas, and libertarians and Greens can at least get together behind reducing subsidies for for-profit corporations that destroy our environment. It's just a matter of whether to subsidize green energy and whether and when to tax for-profit businesses. That is going to be a matter of dispute between libertarian Greens, but if we can kind of stop it before it gets to, we can argue about that once we get there. First, we have to defund all these for-profit companies that are polluting the air that we have to breathe, and thinking that they don't owe us any compensation. And I also have lists of who's running for the Constitution Party and nomination, American Free Soil Party, American Solidarity Party. And that is on my blog, which the link will be in the caption and or the description. We will also show you'll be able to pause these images relating to the Democratic primary and the delegate allocation. We'll blow those up for you. I'd also like to direct the viewers' attention to that blue map. That is the 2016 Democratic primary results, right above Joe's head there. Clinton is dark blue, Sanders is light blue, and I've been explaining in the last few years, and I think Andrew Yang knows this pretty well, that there were a lot of states that Hillary lost in the Midwest because she didn't go to them, that were won by Bernie in the primary, but since Bernie didn't win the primary, Trump ended up winning them, and those are Indiana, gotta do this real quick, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and not Pennsylvania because Trump won Pennsylvania, but Bernie didn't win it. But West Virginia is the other one. So that's at least I think it's 60 or 61 electoral college votes, which would have won Bernie the primary, the general election, because all the polling was saying that Democrats liked Bernie better than Hillary, and they stole it from him.
Did you list every candidate for every party? Because more people don't know how many parties there are. This guy has a chart of how many parties there are.
Yeah, and we'll also provide the link to I wrote literally 2 different blog entries about directories to the third parties and also other interest groups. But we have the 4 candidates for the Constitution Party nomination for president: Don Blankenship, Scott Bradley, Darrell Castle, and Scott Copeland. Now, since those last names start with just B and C, I don't know if that's a partial list or if there are a lot more running or if that's all 4. So it stops at C for what that's worth. You can always go to ballotpedia.org/list of registered 2020 presidential candidates and verify that information. And Enrique Ramos and Adam Seaman, thanks for making me read this, Ethan, are running for the Free Soil Party, the American Free Soil Party, the American Solidarity Party, Joe Schreiner, Joshua Perkins, and Brian T. Carroll. And 600 others. If you voted in the Democratic primary in 2016, who did you vote for?
Bernie Sanders.
And Joe?
No, I did not vote in the Democratic primary. I voted in the Republican primary.
I voted in the Democratic primary for Bernie. Who did you vote for in the Republican?
I voted for Rand Paul.
He was running in 2016 still?
I think he had dropped out by that time.
Oh. He was a write-in available?
No, he was still on the ballot.
Really? Okay, so they just not removed it yet, even though he dropped out.
Yeah.
And why did you feel comfortable with that vote? Did you feel like that vote would be counted?
I don't know. I guess
it was still early. Illinois is what, in the first 40% of states? I gotta find out.
Yeah, Illinois is early. But I don't know. I just didn't feel like casting my vote for the available candidates, and I don't know. He was still on the ballot, so he was a candidate I was backing before.
I had thought about voting for Rand Paul in that primary or John Kasich, but I had personally vowed never to vote for Rand Paul after I wrote a song called Stand With Rand, because I felt that he kind of supported a little bit of United States intervention in Ukraine and Syria.
I'm an American man and I stand with the rain. I hold that American flag in my hand like my daddy done did before me at Iwo Jima. I'm 6 foot tall and I watch football. I love my country, it's one for all, like my daddy done did before me at Hiroshima. I love America, but I hate FEMA.
It just seemed like he was willing to just kind of not reduce U.S. presence abroad consistently, so I was a little worried about that. It was more like in the mood that his father was better than him on non-intervention, but I definitely strongly considered Rand Paul. So do you have any qualms about supporting Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary in 2020? Are you considering that?
Yeah, maybe.
I have a few issues with him, like his positions on gun control. So I want to talk about something that happened in 1994 that both Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden were involved in.
Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, "I'm ashamed that I voted for the '94 crime bill."
The number of Americans in prison almost doubled during Bill Clinton's time in office. That was largely due to the 1994 crime bill, which built more prisons and meant harsher sentencing.
You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. In fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
And by the way, we talk about this mostly in terms of Black Lives Matter. Black lives really do matter. But the problem is institutional racism in America. That's the overarching problem that still exists. And we should be talking about it. And you look at it, the legacy of racism in housing and jobs and so on. But having said that, if you take a look at the crime bill, of the money in the crime bill, the vast majority went to reducing sentences, diverting people from going to jail for drug offenses into what I came up with, the drug courts, providing for boot camps instead of sending people to prison so you didn't relearn whatever the bad thing that got you there in the first place.
So I wrote this about the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, otherwise known as the Bill Clinton Omnibus Crime Bill, which has been known to a lot of people, activists, to have put about 1 or 2 million, mostly black and brown people in prison, and has taken a generation of fathers away from their family, minority fathers, for just committing nonviolent drug crimes. And there was a lot of concerted effort between Republicans and Democrats in the early 90s to pass significant crime control reform. And I'm not sure if there's calls for gun control in association with that, but I want to talk about one specific thing, the Violence Against Women Act. So I'm going to read this post that I wrote that kind of explains it all. Bernie Sanders thinks it's okay to put 1 to 2 million black and brown nonviolent offenders in jail if you do it under the guise of protecting women from domestic violence. Sanders finally supported the Bill Clinton Omnibus Crime Bill, Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, when it became evident that the VAWA, Violence Against Women Act, would become part of the Clinton bill. VAWA and the rest of the Clinton crime bill became law on the same day, September 13th, 1994. The beginning of the Clinton era, with its increased immigration restrictions, welfare cuts, and crime control, was nothing more than a war on poor people, non-whites, and non-citizens. Joe Biden drafted both laws, the VAWA and the crime control bill in general. They were passed either together or as part of the same bill or something. Biden and Sanders both voted for Violence Against Women Act and the Clinton crime bill. Hillary spoke in defense of them by calling black teen criminals super predators, and saying we need to bring them to heel.
We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere.
I think that was kind of dehumanizing them like dogs. And liberal white women apparently bought it all hook, line, and sinker and think Hillary's a hero.
And which Hillary Clinton strongly supported.
This bill would have put more police on the street, would have locked up violent offenders so they never could get out again, would have given more prison construction money.
Bernie Sanders supported that bill too and voted for it, despite voicing serious concerns.
We are dooming today tens of millions of young people to a future of bitterness, misery, hopelessness, drugs, crime, and violence. Mr. Speaker, it is disturbing that the death of Nicole Simpson, a tragedy affecting the rich and the famous, should be necessary to force us to take notice of the horror of domestic violence. Mr. Speaker, 80% of homicides in Vermont involve domestic partners or family members. All of the 6 women slain in Vermont during 1993 died at the hands of an intimate partner or a family member.
I could never bring myself to vote for Hillary Biden, sad to say, or Sanders again. I could be proven wrong, but I pointed out a lot more things. I'm going to have a link in the description to my blog about wars that Bernie has supported. Although Sanders voted against authorizing Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, later that year he supported a resolution expressing appreciation for Bush's actions in that war. Sanders has recently called for withdrawing troops from Iraq as soon as possible. However, in 2003, he opposed an immediate withdrawal, supporting a gradual withdrawal instead. Additionally, Sanders voted to fund U.S. operations in Iraq, although he voted against bills funding that war more often than he voted for them. So that is just a paragraph from an article I did about Bernie Sanders. It's called Sanders' Foreign Policy Silence Hides Abysmal Record. I kind of argue that he's okay on domestic policy. He says what people wants to hear, but in terms of foreign policy, and it is very difficult to verify some of these votes that he took in the 90s about Somalia and Bosnia and Albania and stuff. But apparently he supported interventions in Bosnia and Albania, and supported NATO bombings of military targets in Kosovo. So it's just in Sudan, Liberia, and Zaire. Yeah. So again, I have not been able to verify this, but there have been a few reports that have said that he's voted for potentially NATO and or U.S. involvement in potentially up to 10 to 12 wars over the last 30 years. So that's just why I'm really reticent to support him. Ethan, I want to know what you think about that because you're considering supporting him.
Yeah, that is a weird thing that I'm afraid of, is if Bernie Sanders likes war too much, because one of the facts we found is that there's at least 535 military industrial locations, because they put one in every district, just to make sure that if you vote against any military expansion, well, then you look like you're not a job creator, and that's how they keep many districts afloat and being fully Republican throughout the worst parts of the country, as I would call them. Not flyover states, but train-through states. They've become, for me, is where I take a nap on the train because there's nothing to see here, folks, in most of the red counties, most of the red districts that have done that. So Vermont has the F-16. No, it's not the F-16. What's the airplane that they make in Bernie's district? that's cost $3.5 trillion, and that's
F-35?
too much. The F-35 is an expensive-ass plane that we don't need any of, much less a Space Force, or just a Space Force and disband the Air Force. Because I'd rather go to space than bomb other countries on Earth, that's for sure. Do you think we should have more wars or less wars? And what do you think Bernie thinks?
Should have less wars. I think, I don't know, I think Bernie seems better on foreign policy than most of the Democrats.
I agree. Can you name only one candidate or two on the left that has a better foreign policy than Bernie Sanders? Because I'll just name them for you. Tulsi Gabbard seems to have a better foreign policy than Bernie Sanders, or at least a more explicit one of less wars, whereas she doesn't have as much of a record as Bernie has had. Maybe he had to vote some ways, he thought, and now he's trying to save the world. But Tulsi's been saving the world from the start, so her record is cleaner, even if there's less of a record. And I would say Mike Gravel has the record where he put potentially his life on the line at that time by exposing and ending the Vietnam War. He contributed greatly to the end of the Vietnam War. And he's running for president kind of on accident. What are they doing? It's a couple of kids running his Twitter.
He's not a serious candidate, though.
Yeah, no.
He just changed his mind.
He is, yeah.
The other day. He's like, I was joking, but I think I'm going to do good.
So Mike Gravel is the Alaska senator. He was a Democrat. He got a start in the 70s, and he was responsible for putting the Pentagon Papers into the public record. And he actually got a catheter installed so that he could do that and like filibuster for 12 hours or whatever he needed to do. And he got it entered into the public record by explaining, like he was going to explain the finances of the Vietnam War, and he just explained everything we're spending the money on in Vietnam, and that allowed him to the Pentagon Papers.
They were reporting false numbers for Vietnamese casualties. Like, if you started adding up 10,000 a day, 10,000 a day, 5,000, like you add up all the massacres, it was more than the population of Vietnam. They were just faking the numbers on the news every night. If you added up how many they said we killed in every airstrike, 5,000 Viet Cong, we're doing so good, guys. No, they were lying. And that was in record to Congress. That's why they had to end the Vietnam War, because too many lies were exposed. I don't know when they exposed Gulf of Tonkin. Gravel's last day in the Senate was 1980. Or no, he was a rep. His last day in Congress was in 1980. But then he ran for president since then.
It's really shocking to me how like shameful it is that they would increase the death numbers in the media to get people to like the war. But you know, it makes sense in retrospect. It's I thought you were going to say that they decreased the numbers in order to lie about how many people they were killing. But that's crazy. But you know, Gravel also had something to do with the end of the draft registration, I think, and he was in being a senator in Alaska around the time that they started the basic income, right? Or he probably left the Senate.
He was in Congress when they passed that. So he knows all about it. So when I saw him get asked that question.
And that's why I see Gravel and you just similar candidates.
1968, and then he ran for vice president in 72, re-election for Senate in 1974. So he was a hero. He was hero enough to be considered vice president candidate in 72. That's because the Pentagon Papers were, what, year 1971. He was an obscure freshman senator in a far corner of the country to a nationally visible political figure. Became a sought-after speaker, ran for VP. Oh, they chose Eagleton instead. George McGovern ran back then.
Yeah, wasn't he the nominee in 72?
Yeah.
Hunter S. Thompson said that Gravel probably said a few things that might have been worth hearing under different circumstances.
I've heard that Hunter S. Thompson had a pretty influential role in getting Jimmy Carter popularized among young people. Popularized enough to win presidency. So any last comments about the Democratic primary before we sign off?
Booker takes bribes.
Brad takes bribes. Booker takes bribes.
Beto takes bribes.
Everybody whose name starts with a B takes bribes. Don't vote for her.
Kamala for Quantico. What do they got at Quantico? I know they got a jail there. That's where she belongs. Just for alliteration's sake.
I think that's where they're testing all our DNA, maybe keeping copies of all our foreskins or something.
Well, signing off, y'all.